Good morning, everybody. Hello, how are you? I'm Laurie Ruettimann, and you are in the Shift Career Summit. My colleague, Mary Ellen Slayter, will be joining us shortly, but I just wanted to welcome you today and talk a little bit about what you're going to expect in today's Career Summit. So to get started, we are here today to really focus on your career. We've had a heck of an 18 months, right? From February 2020 on, things have been a little chaotic. Here in America, where I'm based, we've lost over 600,000 people to COVID. Organizations shut down, they furloughed people, they sent you home, they were clueless, and they forgot to put you, the employee, the worker, the freelancer, at the center of all of the experiences. We know that when you're happy, organizations thrive. And unfortunately, many of you are not happy. You're at a point in your career where you're thinking about doing that buzzword called pivoting. You're thinking about shifting, right? You're thinking about moving forward. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So my dear friend, Mary Ellen Slayter, and I were talking about all the career summits out there, all the people who are talking about the world of work. And it seemed a bit disingenuous. It almost seemed a little bit lofty and a little bit imaginary. And as we got to chatting, we thought, boy, we really need to create a safe space, a community, a place where people can come together and really learn from experts where the rubber meets the road. And that's what Shift Digital Careers is all about. So we're here today, and there are going to be some absolutely amazing speakers and amazing sessions. So we're going to start off this morning with my friend, Julie Lithcott-Hames. She wrote a terrific book called Your Turn, and it's all about adulting. And as I got to talking to Julie, I'm like, adulting isn't just hard for kids and young adults. It's hard for people in their 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond. Like, adulting is a pain in the butt. And I want to have a conversation about that. Also, adulting is difficult specifically based on identity, right? If you're not part of the norm, if you're not part of the so-called majority, how do you even adult? How do you compete? How do you exist? How do you be your authentic self at work? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have so many other great speakers today throughout the day. We're going to talk to my friend, Andy Storch. And Andy is a human resources and learning consultant. He's based in Orlando, Florida. And Andy wrote this really terrific book all about career resilience. But the cool and interesting thing about Andy is that he's living his brand. COVID hit and he was an HR consultant. And he's like, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? And he created this really amazing community of learning folks, right? If that's your thing, you're in that community. And then he decides he's going to write a book all about his career journey, kind of a self-help inspirational book. And then right before the book comes out, he's diagnosed with testicular cancer. And he's going to tell this story about testicular cancer affects men primarily before the age of 40. And he was about to turn 40, right? Bad luck. What do you do? So he dug into his steadfastness, his determination, and he kind of went on parallel paths in his journey. He pursued his cancer treatments, but he also managed to grow his business in the age of COVID. He spoke, he put out a podcast, he got this book out, he grew his community. And how do you do all that when your world is falling apart? So Andy's going to talk about that today. The other really cool, interesting speaker that I want to highlight is my friend, Antonio Neves. Now, Antonio Neves is a former journalist. He was on the Today Show. He's done a little bit of acting, but he really understands the world of work and the world of business. And he wrote a book called Stop Living on Autopilot. And instead of creating like these lofty goals around, how to be an inspirational speaker and I'm going to inspire you with stories, he just tells it like it is. And he really gives you a roadmap on how to live in the now, how to actually get stuff done and really move from this world of autopilot that we've all been in the age of COVID. So I have to tell you, I met all of these wonderful people, these amazing speakers, these really talented best-selling authors that are here today on my own career journey, which began back in 1995. If you're here and in the chat, and I've got to kind of look at my screen in a funny way, I would love for you to tell me when your career began, because I am absolutely Gen X. I was born in 1975. So I began my career in this like weird HR internship role because I knew I wasn't going to go to law school. And I thought, all right, HR maybe won't be as bad as I think it is, that everybody says it is. And for me, it was worse. And I don't think it had anything to do with the job in retrospect. I think I made choices out of a position of fear, out of a position of weakness. I made choices that weren't the best in the long-term interest of me. I didn't put myself first. I put myself behind my student loan debt, my desire to get married and start a family. And I thought, okay, I'm a victim of these circumstances. But it took a moment, and I write about this in my book, Betting on You, where I was at an airport, completely burned out, exhausted, tired, totally depressed, flipping through an Us Weekly magazine because I was too mentally foggy to read anything of substance, eating Starburst and drinking a Pepsi for dinner, to realize this is the lowest of the low for me. You know, I was paying my bills, but I wasn't investing in myself. And as I'm flipping through this Us Weekly magazine, you know, in whatever year it was, I'm seeing all these stars, all these celebrities who allegedly are living their best lives. And I'm working for an organization that always has money to do whatever it wants, even when it's laying off people. And I realized all these other individuals, well, they're putting themselves first. And it was time for me to do it. So I had this epiphany, right? I need to change my life. I need to do things differently. But it's not like I made that decision overnight. Not at all. I had to go on this journey of figuring out how to create a plan, how to create a roadmap to do it. And if only I had had Shift Digital Careers, if only I had had the Shift Career Summit, if only I had had people like Lindsay Pollack, Alex Levitt, Minda Harts in my life back then, well, it might have been different. But instead, I kind of did it all on my own, right? Went to the School of Hard Knocks and really struggled through launching my career as an entrepreneur, launching my career as a speaker. I learned things the hard way, and I don't want you to go through that. I think you've been given this phenomenal opportunity. You have survived the pandemic. You've gone through all of 2020 and almost half of 2021, and you're here. You wake up and you're living and you're breathing. Every day is a do-over. And I think with the experts who are going to be joining us today, well, you have really got an opportunity to change your life and to change your career in that order. So there are a few sponsors that I do want to thank today. The first is an organization called Postal.io, so Postal. And Postal is all about recognition, gift giving, saying thank you. And I think that's so important in this day and age to really thank people in your organization and outside. And so I want to thank Postal for being part of today's event. I also want to thank an organization called Best Selfie. Best Selfie is going to provide all y'all with an opportunity to have access to their platform. And when Mary Ellen joins us, she will tell us all about that offering, because I don't have my reading glasses on right now. But Best Selfie is an amazing organization. They do career coaching, and I want you to go ahead and check out Best Selfie. Another organization that I want to tell you about is something that's really fun. It's called Fairy God Boss. Now, Fairy God Boss is a sponsor today, and if you're looking for work or the inside scoop on an organization, you want to know what it's like to work there as a woman, as a man, as someone who identifies anywhere on the spectrum, Fairy God Boss is there for you. They have your back. But Mary Ellen's got her Wonder Woman and her...
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. It's been a little frantic here this morning. It's one of those things that I learned from working at home. It's lawn care day. So you guys get to hear, we were trying to figure out how to mitigate the sounds of lawn care. And I've actually thought about that a lot, like the things in our houses we have to work around that created this whole new set of challenges. Yes. That's the sound of my weed eater.
I'm laughing because not our landscape crew, we do our own lawn. I'm very proud of that. But the landscape crew for the neighbors was out this morning. And I thought, it's a little early, but I'm not going to complain because they're gone now. So I'm real grateful about that. So listen, Mary Ellen, I've been giving everybody the scoop about what today is all about. And I talked about Best Selfie, Postal, and Fairy God Boss. Like, what am I missing? What do you want to say about today?
So I want to say that I want to sort of think back to like what made us decide to do this, right? I remember when you and I were sort of brainstorming the idea of like figuring out how to help people, because so much of the conversation around the future of work is like, one, it's either directed toward HR people and usually by someone trying to sell them something. Right. Like, look, and that's me. I'm trying to sell them something.
The queen of that.
Right. It's like, ooh, like, let's talk about hybrid work. And it's so much harder than any other way. It's like, you're going to need this new tool. Like, look, I get it. Like, that's literally the business I'm in.
Yeah.
Or if they talk about it from the worker standpoint, it's also super negative. That it's really presented like robots are coming for your jobs, all these terrible things, go to trade school, like, you're not cured, it's just really negative. And I'm not a person who wants to just believe, like, I'm not a Pollyanna. Like, if anything, I think one of the reasons why you and I get along is because we both really like a good pre-mortem. Yeah. It's like, how is this going to go horribly wrong? But I felt like there was a need for like positive advice for people on how to navigate this and do well for themselves and for their families, because I do believe, as one of our speakers has, talked about, you had a recent story in that Neil Irwin from the New York Times, he's got a book about how to succeed in a winner-take-all world. He talks about how the workers have the upper hand right now. The question is, what are we going to do with our upper hand? Labor's got the upper hand. What are we going to do with it? And to me, that's what the purpose of this is like, how can you take this moment and use it to create something wonderful for yourself and for your family and for your community?
That's really beautiful. Yeah, I love that. For me, as someone who tends to be a little bit negative, I could sit here and talk about all the ways that labor is going to blow it, right? We're going to be scared. We're not going to take risks. We're not going to put ourselves first, right? We're going to think that, I have a friend, in fact, I won't name him. He's on here today. And he's always like, my company's got me by the short hairs. And I'm like, oh, that's a terrible image. I don't even want to think about that. But that's also a terrible way to go through life. I mean, yes, we are adults. We have constraints. But within those constraints, we can do little tests. And that's what, we'll talk about this throughout the day, this idea of the pre-mortem. These little ways that we can kind of figure out what's going to go wrong and how can we avoid that. And that's what our speakers are here to do. You talked about Neil Irwin, but we've got Christopher Bishop, who's also on the agenda today. And he's going to tell us, all right, your company may have you by the short hairs and your job may have a limited life in this era of double disruption, but you can succeed. You can plan for the jobs of tomorrow and actually go into those jobs with some of the work that you're doing today. So I love that this is all about real grassroots stuff that people can use.
Who else are you looking forward to? So we've got Neil, we've got Chris. I mean, we kind of built this up. We started thinking about all the people that we wanted to hear from. Frankly, this was a very selfishly organized event. Who's your favorite? Tell me about some of the people you're looking forward to.
Oh my goodness. I've mentioned a few, but I'm really excited about Lindsay Pollock because right now she is in the best position of her career because the whole entire world is recalculating. They're trying to figure out what's next. And Lindsay has this philosophy that when you are recalculating, you don't go back to where you start. That's not what the GPS has you do. The GPS tells you how to get where you're going from where you are right now. And I love that analogy because it's so apt, right? How many of us are going to just completely reboot our lives and go back to school? But maybe we can use what we have to get a little bit closer to what we want. And so I'm excited about Lindsay. I'm a fan of her book, Recalculating. And I know one of the things I didn't talk about this morning, Mary Ellen, before you came on, is the fact that we're giving away a ton of stuff today to attendees. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, actually, hold on. I'm going to flag our assistant producer here. Michael, bring me some of these books. I have a lot of books. Okay. So I'm really excited about this. So what we do have roughly about 25 copies of Lindsay's book that we're going to give away during her session. We're going to have a drawing for attendees. Y'all can see Michael's working really hard over here. That's why this is the opening coffee. It's not a formal session.
We're just getting together.
Look, so we've also got, oh my God. So this is one of the ones I'm super excited about, Lori.
I know she's coming up. My friend Julie, she's pretty amazing. She's a firepower. I love this woman. So yeah.
So we have to be adults now. It's like, I feel like in some ways Julie is responsible for like, all the jokes people make about adulting. Like Julie is actually going to teach us how to adult.
That's right. That's right.
So, and I love the work that she does, because in part she doesn't just talk about it like, some of the conversations we have about what it means to like grow up and like transition into adulthood, we assume that people are doing that in an environment where they have two affluent parents who also have good careers, who can make introductions and connections for them. But some of Julie's work I love is focused on kids who don't have that, like young adults, like her passion around kids who are transitioning out of foster care, for example. Yeah. Like that's when I hear Julie talk about that stuff, like as you start to realize like those things that we take for granted, the kids, like, they have and they don't have. It's like, I feel like it's never been a harder time to be a young adult, to be an adolescent right now. And I realize maybe that's a little dramatic, but at least in the modern era, like this is tough.
It is tough. It is tough. I think one of the things I like about Julie's upcoming session, which is going to start at the top of the hour, is the fact that she's taking all of this goodwill and advice that she's been teaching to kids at Stanford as the dean of freshmen and as, a writer and a speaker, and applying it to adults themselves. Because for a long time, Julie has said children fail when adults fail them. But what about adults like me who were at the airport that one night when I worked at Pfizer and I was failing myself? What do you do? How do you start adulting from where you are at this moment? And I think that's what's so beautiful about the session. Had I had Julie when I was working at Pfizer, the next decade of my life would have been totally different. So we're bringing Julie to all y'all today, so you don't have to go to the Laurie Ruettimann School of Hard Knocks. That's right.
Also, I just want to note that Laurie said all y'all and used it correctly. I know she's been living in North Carolina for God knows how long, but since you're from Chicago originally, I feel like that is no small feat.
I have to say, I'm 2 years away from living as long in North Carolina as I have in Chicago.
So all y'all. So everybody who's looking for these gender neutral ways to address people, y'all and all y'all are already there for you.
That's right.
They are already there for you.
Well, we've got. I'm sorry. I just want to say we've got a person in the chat saying they don't want to adult right now. That's fine. Then pay attention to Lindsay's book.
Right. So maybe, so here, let's go to Lindsay's book. So we'll just stop and recalculate. You can return to your adolescence for a brief moment. But I'm excited about this book too. And something else I want to say about Lindsay, because I've known Lindsay for kind of a long time, actually. I first met Lindsay as well as Alexandra Levitt, who's one of our speakers as well, back when I was writing a career advice column for the Washington Post. And what I have watched both of those women do with their careers, like they literally do, they have done what they're telling you to do, is what I want to say. It's like Lindsay started off her career as an expert it's like from career, and same with Alex. It's like from talking about these generational things. And they both like really evolved their expertise. And I've watched the way, I'm going to talk about Lindsay just specifically, the way that she's taken that perspective and that knowledge that she built around generational issues. She didn't stay stuck there, right? She didn't stay stuck there. Yes, she's got an expertise in that. She still talks about it. She still teaches on it, but she's picked that up, and she's now written several books, and they're all excellent. Yeah. And she has recalculated herself. So you want to listen to her. You want to listen to what this woman has to say.
Isn't that a theme today? Everybody who is here has written a book, who has created something, has done it and written it to you because they've done it for themselves, right? So, yeah.
The other thing, you could talk about, we're also giving away copies of Antonio's book, Stop Living on Autopilot. My friend there that doesn't want to adult. No, Antonio's going to tell you, you don't get to
well, and we talked a little bit about Antonio and what he's going to bring to the table today. And I'm excited. He's someone who has observed the world of work as a journalist. He's, been inside of a lot of different careers, and he's just a human being, which I love. He's real. So I think everybody's going to enjoy that today.
Cool. And we've also got copies of Breaking Bases, which is a book written by my friend Dima, and she's going to talk about her experience growing up in Jordan and going on to become the woman that she is. She was a global recruiting for IBM, now has her own speaking and consulting business. And it's a really, really inspiring story. And she's somebody that I feel like many of you may not know about her. And so she's one of the speakers that we have today that, hasn't necessarily been like on the New York Times bestseller list, but she's got a great story and a great perspective. And she's really, because of her time as a recruiter, a global recruiter, she has just some really, really great perspective about what it takes to succeed and get hired. And she's also really funny. Like she has some really funny, very vulnerable stories about her times navigating, being a woman, Middle Eastern woman navigating global business and like just having to drop into these places and navigate relationships. She's amazing.
Well, I love the session because she's also going to talk to us and really teach us how to communicate in suboptimal conditions, right? And so that applies to Zoom, that applies to interdisciplinary teams, it applies to a team where they may not welcome you in your input, right? There's all kinds of lessons to be learned from Dima's session. So I'm stoked for that one. I think that's cool. I'm going to learn something because I'm on Zoom all day long.
Right. So I guess, and then in addition to the books that we're giving away, we are also, our friends at Postal, who are sponsoring the event today, they are going to be giving us 5 work from home essentials packages to raffle off. We're going to do that in the very last session. So you don't want to miss that. It's kind of a surprise to me what's in these too. I feel like I'm going to find out there are things that I should have had that I didn't have, but they just have the best gifts. They have like the way that they're approaching gifting and like sort of remote and hybrid work is super fun. So I'm excited to give those away.
Well, Mary Ellen, before you go any further, I'm going to drop off to get ready for Julie's session, and I'm going to leave you with the audience. Enjoy that. And everybody, I'll see you at the top of the hour with Julie Lipcott-Hanks.
Cool. So everybody, I would love to hear y'all just take a moment and share with me some of the things that you want to learn in this session. I'm going to look away from the camera, but it's because I want to read what you have to say. So tell me, what are you hoping to learn? Like, where are you in your career right now that we can help you? Because we'll make sure that some of these things get addressed. So, see, I've got Ward coming in from Philadelphia. I've still got John over here not wanting to adult. Transferable skills. That's one of my favorite topics. I don't know how many of you guys have heard me give this talk. It's on basically in defense of the liberal arts in the age of AI. I actually believe that the people who are going to be the best positioned to succeed in this environment are often people who don't necessarily didn't spend their college years getting technical training, that they got liberal arts degrees. Because all the things that employers are saying that they value, the skills, when you look at the World Economic Forum's skills gap list, it's all about creativity. It's all about communication skills. It's language skills. Like it's being curious. And these are things that you get in those programs. So my hope is that we'll stop with the sort of cultural denigration of the liberal arts, because I think that is not doing us or our young people any favors. So transferable skills are going to be huge in this. What else we got? Let's see. What else is on your mind? Somebody says they don't want to get stuck. They want to develop before they need to. That's a good way to think about it. Like it's often talked about in business. We say disrupt yourself before the market does it for you. And that it's kind of stressful to think about it that way. We're used to the idea of, with our careers that like there are these defining moments, that you come in and you go to school and you got your degree and then you're like in this kind of steady state, progression. When in reality, to borrow a term from biology, evolution, our career evolution in this environment is not going to be steady state. It is going to be a model of punctuated equilibrium. So I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with that term. But that's really the way that now that modern biologists think that evolution happens, is that you have steady, 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 something crazy happens. Steady, 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 something crazy happens. And that model is what I think we should think about when we think about our careers. So it's Stephen Jay Gould. If you guys remember reading any Stephen Jay Gould, and I learned that because I have a science degree, not a business degree. All right, let's see. So helping those with no degree, but instead of short-term certificate, move forward. Okay, yes, this is where our technical skills, when we think about how to develop those technical skills, this is where I think the focus should be. I think it's in micro-learning. I think it's in self-education. The most successful people I know are constantly teaching themselves. They're building on that base of transferable skills and teaching themselves these little everyday, so then you never get behind. Because the truth is, like, these things all move so fast. There's no degree that's going to teach you how to be a digital marketer. And I'm just going to say that that's the business that I'm in. There is no digital marketing degree that is going to do you a damn bit of good, because whatever they taught you is old by the time you walk out. So I would suggest that you get a decent foundation in the basics of business, learn to tell a good story, get some work on your empathy. Like, psychology is a good preparation for marketing, anthropology, sociology. You're going to have to teach yourself the ever evolving ways of the Google algorithms on your own. There's no degree program for that. So certificates, micro learning, sort of DIY. Like, we make a joke at RevCap at my company that we get our degrees from the University of Google. So one day maybe Google will actually have a university for us. Ooh, I see another one, retirement. Oh my God. Okay. So retirement is one of those things that's on my mind a lot. Like, we did some really interesting content a while back with Aon, who has this amazing data set for retirement readiness. And it's not a survey. It's like they literally have everybody's account balances and how, like, what they're tracking for, all that. It's the actuaries ran this research. And what it revealed to me was how even the people who are working in corporate America with the best retirement plans and access to all the best resources are not saving enough for retirement. They don't have enough money. So if those people don't have enough money, what does that mean for the rest of us? So I think that retirement, especially when you look at some of the demographics around, the aging workforce, I'm not so sure we're going to be retiring in the same way that the boomers necessarily aim to retire. Like, the idea that you're going to hustle, put in your 20 years and log off at 65 and not work for the next 30 years, I don't think is realistic. But I think it's also up to us as a society and as a culture and for our economy to figure out a way to take advantage of the things that older workers bring to the workforce, and that maybe we don't all have to bust ass, 50 hours a week into our 80s. Like, nobody should be calling for that. But there's got to be ways to bring in the full breadth of humanity of people of all ages to contribute in an appropriate way, in a meaningful way, and also maintain our standard of living. I could talk about this all day, but there's only 3 more minutes. So let's see the next one. We're all getting ready to go learn about Julie. I got 1 minute here. I also love, somebody asked about mid-career, how to stay fueled, how to, not get stuck. I really think that the secret to not getting and not feeling stuck is to make sure you have time in your day and in your week to learn something new. And I would say things like this event, are a good example. I will see y'all all now over in Julie's session.